Welcome to the IoT podcast show. I'm your host, Tom White. Today I'm joined by Bastiaan de Groot of Ingy. Ingy is a top 50 EU prop tech startup developing innovative lighting solutions for smart and energy efficient buildings. Ingy uses lighting as the backbone of smart buildings, enabling applications such as asset tracking, indoor navigation, occupancy, analytics, and much more. Bastiaan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here, and I must say, a great summary. I think you can join straight in as as a picture for our business.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm available to rent for these things. If you ever want me to intro anywhere else, you can just give me a call. Bastiaan, clearly a really interesting business. We were just talking offline just a moment ago about some of the work that my company does in lighting and what have you. But could you start by just explaining what your background is in IoT?
So I've got a quite diverse background. I always tend to joke that I can read both C code and a profit and loss statement. So I've got both an engineering degree in artificial intelligence and an executive MBA from INSEAD.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I can really stand on both sides. In terms of IoT, I've worked in a myriad of businesses. I've worked quite a few years in consulting in London, where I worked in corporate venturing, and there I worked mainly on the technology side of things. So I worked for E.ON on all kinds of smart home businesses and smart energy businesses. I worked on augmented reality for Airbus or AEDS, but Airbus is the more known name. I actually built a smart home business for La Poste. Will you believe it? It never launched.
Wow.
But I tend to say that was not due to my effort. And for Vodafone, British Telecom, Philips. A whole range of different IoT businesses, and then I ended up becoming the head of strategy for Velosylvania, which is one of the largest lighting companies. And there I obviously specialized really into the application of IoT within the lighting domain.
Right, okay. Oh, fantastic. Really varied background, right? Fairly similar, I would say, to myself, because I actually studied embedded engineering at university, and then moved much more into the commercial side of the business. I can still probably read a little bit in a compiler. I don't know if I can actually get code to compile anymore without being very buggy, but probably a similar vein to yourself, I'd say, Bastiaan.
Exactly. That's why I very particularly said I can read C code. I'm making the claim that I can still write it, although I am convinced that I would still be able to do it. I think I would have to sit down for a few weeks and take a refresher.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Bastiaan, could you talk a little bit about Ingy's smart building lighting and control solution and what that means and how you've developed it?
Yeah, so really we solve one major problem, and that is that if you want to deploy smart buildings, you typically need to deploy a lot of hardware in your building, all right? And the whole concept stands really great until you start looking at the cost of deploying all these sensors across the building, which means you either have to put power points everywhere and pull a lot of cables to power those sensors, or you have to deploy battery-powered sensors. And then in any business case, you have to accommodate for basically hiring 2 or 3 people full-time per building just to replace the batteries, right? So neither of those work. And then the second problem you have with deploying the sensors is getting the connectivity done, right? So either, again, you deploy a wired network throughout your entire building dedicated to the IoT, or you use existing high bandwidth communication technologies, but that means your sensors will become too expensive, or you use something like LoRaWAN or anything else, but that typically doesn't have the reach inside the building.
Sure.
So how do we solve this? We use lighting, right? So lighting is deployed across the entire building. It has an extremely high density, right? Every 5 or 6 square meters, you have a light point. And it's always mains powered. So if you integrate the hardware, the backbone of your smart building inside the lighting, you actually have all these problems solved, right? Because once the lighting is installed, your hardware is already installed, and actually you don't need extra communication because you already need a wireless chip in your luminaire just to do the lighting control. So if you just do that a bit smarter and you make sure you can use that communication network also for other IoT applications, you can basically create a dedicated IoT backbone in your entire building without having to create any additional cost to the lighting. And then what we do is we build a whole set of applications on top of that, right? So we can do, of course, occupancy analytics because we have presence sensors to turn the lighting on. Yeah. Well, if we can actually get that data out, we can give you a heat map of which rooms have been used or are being used in real time. We can do asset tracking, so we can put tags on objects and locate them inside the building with about 2-meter precision. We can do indoor navigation because the mobile phone can talk to the luminaire and locate itself. But also we can add, for example, wireless battery sensors to do climate monitoring, because all they need to do is a little solar cell to take a measurement, and they just ping it out, and then one of the luminaires will pick it up, and they will then create the connection to the backbone, which you could never do with any other wireless technology because it's just too power hungry. Yeah. And we have perfect coverage, right? People try to do the same thing, for example, with Wi-Fi. But yeah, once you start doing asset tracking on Wi-Fi, you have one access point every 200-300 square meters. It's just not enough. We have one every 6 square meters. So we can just deliver so much more accuracy on the asset tracking and the indoor navigation.
Yeah, I mean that's staggering, isn't it? Because I have a fairly good understanding around adaptive Wi-Fi solutions, and we've had people on the show in the past, such as Kees Links from Corvo, generally considered one of the founding fathers of Wi-Fi, right? And when you look at mesh networking and Wi-Fi in the home and adaptive Wi-Fi, certainly Wi-Fi 6, some of these intelligent systems that they use about monitoring and also from a not so much asset monitoring but proximity sensoring, where you check for breaks in the connection, etc. I think you're right. It's the fact that sometimes they're so dispersed as well that you need more, right, in order to accurately predict. And it's interesting you should say, because to me as a novice, 1 every 6 meters sounds like a lot, right? It sounds like a lot to have that. What is the reason for that? Is it just based around clarity and accuracy of the information that comes back?
No, I mean, just look up to your ceiling. How many light points do you have in the room you're sitting now?
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah.
You just, I mean, if you don't have a light point every 6 square meters, you just don't get a equal light distribution in your room. So, if you just take a how do you call it, the systematic, like a tile ceiling, right? You would see that every sort of 10-20 tiles would be a light point, and each of those we equip with a wireless chip to be able to control it and connect the so it's already there. I mean, it's, for any other application, it's complete overkill, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think what we see for our asset tracking, we need maybe 1 every 100 square meters. But we already have it because we basically get it for free because it's integrated in the lighting hardware. And the lighting hardware needed a communication chip anyway. So it's not getting any more expensive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if the infrastructure is already there, then you may as well use it, right?
Exactly.
I get it. So, Bastiaan, lighting has evolved massively from just a simple functional mechanism towards intelligent systems that can support a wide range of smart building applications, as you mentioned, including asset tracking, indoor navigation, and control monitoring. What are the major use cases you have seen in connected lighting move towards recently? What are most people looking for their systems to do?
Well, so I think it's an interesting question in the way it's formulated, right? Because you actually say, what are most people looking for? If I would say what are most people looking for, they're probably looking to turn the lights on and off.
Yeah. Okay.
So we are really in this stage where we really know better what our customer needs than what our customer know that they need. If you look at what our customers are responding to the most once we explain them what is possible, what they never even would have thought of themselves that their lighting was possible to do, then I would say it's asset tracking is really our lead application, and this is also the application that we are pretty much unique in, right? So a lot of people come with stories about the future of the smart lighting, but what we see is we actually are able to deliver what others consider to be the future now, right? And asset tracking is really what is really hitting really hardly with us, because we can deliver so much value compared to others, right? So if you don't use the lighting and you want to deploy asset tracking, the costs are humongous because you've got to deploy an infrastructure and you've got to deploy it with a very high density. And then secondly, the benefit from asset tracking is humongous, especially in hospitals, right? So we see that our customers, they can save about anywhere between 5 and 15% on the amount of medical equipment they need, just because they know better where it is, right? So if you know exactly where everything is, you just need less of it. Well, and if you take a bed, like a hospital bed, is costing you 10,000 euros. So if you need 15% less beds, that's a 1,000 to 1,500 euros saving per bed, not leaving the recertification, the maintenance cost of those beds, the time spent looking for them away, and that all because you just put a tag on it that costs you a few tens of euros. So that's a really, really strong business case. And then the second business case within healthcare is certification compliance, right? So you can imagine medical equipment needs to be certified every X months, right? But if you have tens of thousands of drip feeds, do you really think that they are able to find every last drip feed that they need to certify? So they always have a non-compliance, right? This is just a rather kept secret fact, but it's true, and we help them to get 100% compliance, right? Because we can help them just make a print. Here is all your drip feeds that need certification, and this is their exact location right now at this moment, and you can just go and pick them up. And then other key ones, actually one that is getting a lot of traction that you might not expect is smart washing rooms. So we can, of course, extract information about which washing rooms are used, how often they're being used, because the lights are on when people use bathrooms. So we know exactly, and that's actually, especially for public buildings, a key concern in their customer satisfaction, right? So we can tell them exactly that bathroom has been used a lot. Go and deploy someone there, and that bathroom nobody's been there. We can actually install wireless battery-free feedback buttons so people can press if they want it to be cleaned. So if you get 4 or 5 of those button presses, you probably need to go to that bathroom and clean it. So that's an interesting one. And then there is a whole myriad of other use cases. But if you ask me to pick one, asset tracking is the one.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that. It's so interesting because how is it that you're able to support such a wide range of propositions across so many industries? Because it's almost countless, isn't it? There's just so many.
It is, and this is really. Sorry, I'm now going to do a little bit of my MBA speak.
That's okay. That's
right.
All right.
So, really, what we deploy in the to the core is ecosystem approach, right? So we're not a vertically integrated solution provider, and this is where I see most of our competitors go wrong. They're all trying to build a vertically integrated solution, which means they have to build the entire cloud application in all the sensor hardware, all the lighting hardware integration, and you just can't. Nobody can manage that. It's too wide. So what we do instead is we actually build only a very small portion. So we build the embedded software that runs inside the luminaire, and we license that to luminaire manufacturers who then build luminaires out of it. And for them, we have a very attractive proposition because we offer them a fantastic lighting control system for a very sharp price, because we don't make our money off the lighting control system. And they can sell this story to their customers that this is actually making their building IoT ready, and they can employ all these beautiful use cases. But for them, it's really about the lighting control system, and they sell that to lighting people. And then we connect to another part of our ecosystem is the portal providers, right? So we see a lot of our competitors, they say, oh, we just make the hardware so that we can hook everybody to your portal, limiting you in a lot, right? Because everybody says, oh, cloud development is easy. Well, it's not, because the cloud applications we support, they range from asset management for a hospital. Right, bang, that's a whole industry with 30 years of experience, people building software packages just to manage assets in a hospital, to room booking systems and integrated facility management systems that handle the whole facility management, right? Where we can insert jobs to clean a certain area or to make a room booking based on occupancy, or to withdraw a room booking because somebody booked a room but there's nobody in the room, so somebody else can do it, to logistic warehouses where we're integrated with SAP, right? And I almost see competitors of us that they obviously haven't thought it through enough, but what they really are saying is, yeah, we're going to build a cloud solution that's going to build asset tracking for hospitals, it's going to do room booking, and it's going to do logistic management because we supply the data from the sensors. And it's like, you realize you just made through major industries with multi-billion companies making solutions for this, and you're going to compete with it? It's crazy. So instead, we're saying, let us focus on the software. We're an embedded software company. We provide the API, and we can provide that same information to all those three different systems, right? For us, it doesn't matter whether it's a logistics company or a healthcare solution. We just tell you, tag 157029 is now in room 2BA903. And that's what our API just pops out. And whether that's a healthcare solution or an industrial solution, doesn't matter. Lighting control, same thing. Our lighting control system just works, whether it's in a luminaire for a hospital or for a logistics center. And then we have built a whole ecosystem of sensor providers, right? So we now network, which provides a lot of which provides the connectivity. But then we partner with dozens of companies that make all kinds of sensors, right? So sensors, infrared distance sensors to measure the distance in a towel dispenser, power sensors to measure power of subnets. I mean, we've got all these crazy sensors. If we would have to develop all of those, you just can't, right? So all these places we're doing an ecosystem approach, and we just bring it all together on our software, and then let others expand on that, and that allows us to take a lot of stuff also off the shelf that was developed for super pinpointed solutions. We pull this in, and then it all runs through our mesh as the binding factor.
Yeah. I mean, it's staggering, really, isn't it? Lighting has advanced technologically so drastically that connecting lighting it's just seen such a huge growth so quickly. I mean, what types of barriers has Ingy seen and need to overcome for connected lighting to hit its full potential, Bastiaan?
Well, I think there's many, but I think if you name a few, then one of it is the two buyers that we have to deal with, right? So we very clearly identify we have a lighting buyer who wants to buy a lighting solution. And the funny thing is, you say, look, lighting made so many steps. And if you ask the people in the lighting industry, they would say, yeah, we had this LED transformation, it's massive. But really, if you show Edison, a light of today, you still recognize what it does. Of course, it's LED, but but really, okay, so we went from a wire in a vacuum to a wire in a gas to gases in a tube, and now we go to basically wires on a semiconductor scale. But in the end, it's still you push some electrons through something and it starts emitting photons, right? And it still looks the same.
Yeah.
And if you have people outside of the lighting industry, they're like, well, what changed? I mean, it still looks the same. So actually the lighting industry hasn't changed that much and has massive issues adopting the smart lighting space, right? Because if you look at all the stuff we talked about, it's got nothing to do with lighting anymore. And that's really where our biggest issue is, right? So we sell a lighting solution to a lighting player, and we literally have two pitch decks, right? So pitch deck one goes, we've got a fantastic lighting control solution. You can install it wirelessly. It's scalable. You can commission it with your mobile phone. You can hit all the subsidy points and incentive points to make your building super energy efficient. And by the way, it's also creating, sort of last slide in the deck is sort of the big takeaway. Oh yeah, and by the way, you can also use it as a backbone of your smart building. Right? That's our lighting pitch. And then we have another pitch, which goes, we can do all these fantastic things. We can do asset tracking. We can do occupancy analytics. We can do smart washrooms, chicken monitoring in farms, and whatever you want. And we can do that way cheaper. And how can we do that? Well, you just have to find the person in your company that buys lighting and tell them to buy Ingy-enabled lighting.
Yeah.
And we really need to play those two pitches to those two different buyers and then bring them together. So it very often happens that one of our partners is talking to the lighting partner in a company, and one of the partners is talking to the smart building person in a company. Then both those partners come to us and say, hey, we're talking to this company. And then we're like, hey, but we know somebody else that's also talking to this company. And then we bring them together. And then they start bringing the people within the organization together, because typically they don't even know each other. So we often connect those people in the organization and bring them together. Still having a proposition for each of them, but just saying, hey, you should, if you both just agree that you buy Ingy, you both have a fantastic deal from your respective value chain.
Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic, and I think some of the things that you've done at Ingy in a relatively short space of time are truly remarkable. Credit where credit is due to yourself, Bastiaan, and your team. It's
thank you.
I mean it. It's really quite impressive. You're going to be the best person to ask this question, but what are the new and upcoming smart building use cases you're currently working on, and where do you think we're going to be in the next few years? What's likely to become commonplace out there?
So let me start with the question: what's new? What's new in cooking? So if we look, what we're really working on at the moment is low cost people counting, right? So everybody wants people counting. You want to know how many people are in your building, and you really see that market split, right? So on one end, you have the cheap sensors, basically PIR sensor that tells you someone is there, or maybe a door counter that just counts how many people go in and out of a door. And then you have the other side is the camera-based solutions that really count people, but they're on a completely different level in terms of cost. And we really see there is an opportunity there in the middle. So we have quite a number of partners actually, because again, this is typically not technology we would develop in-house, but we have a number of partners that are working on sort of a mid-range solution, right? So somebody that you can install in a room for tens of euros that would count the people 95%, 98% accurately. And I think that's really gonna be a key breakthrough. The other thing that we see is lost and more indoor climate monitoring. And again, there you have some cheap sensors, but if you really want to do proper CO2, it's really energy inefficient and costly. And that's really two of the key sensor cases we want to be working towards. I think if you say where is the smart building market going, I think wireless has been a long promise. And it's really a necessity, right? Because if you don't do it wirelessly, then just putting all those cables in, it's just killing any business case. I think the challenge so far has been the scalability of the wireless technology, and I think there you see something playing. Again, going to put some MBA speak on there, but what we see is that in the standardization bodies, because you need the consensus, and the wireless technology to really deliver it at scale is so complex, that we really see a trouble getting the standardization bodies to get to a consensus on a scalable wireless technology. They all promise it, but it all falls over. A scalable wireless mesh technology that goes into the tens of thousands of nodes. So we're working with a player called Wirepass, which actually started proprietary. So they have about 15 years of deep R&D research, and they built, in my view, one of the few highly scalable mesh, if not the only highly scalable mesh solution in-house. And they've been able to make the speed to deliver the scalable mesh. And now they're looking as a single promoter to push that standard into a standardization effort, which I think has given them the ability to break through that major issue in the industry, that the consortium consensus way of building standards has not been able to solve so far. And I think once that kicks in, once we finally have that scalable mesh, then we can see that what's happening in the home, right, where the scalability is not an issue and the smart home is kind of starting to take off. We can see that happening in the professional market, which is just blocked at the moment by the lack of scalability in wireless technology.
Yeah. It's interesting you should mention Wirepass, actually, because I think Yoni's coming on the show at some point soon. It keeps getting a smaller and smaller world, doesn't it?
Yoni, I know very, very well. So we have almost daily contact.
Right. Okay. Crikey. Yeah. Well, I mean, Bastiaan, I think it's fantastic, isn't it? Just purely what you've done, what you've managed to create so soon, and where things are going in the future, I think is really quite staggering. So all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for sharing your insights and coming on the show today. We've really enjoyed it. I know our listeners have. Lots of useful take-homes here with regards to the solutions that you're building, but the wider consensus around the connected lighting industry, and certainly one to watch when we look at IoT as a whole.
Yeah, brilliant, Tom. It was a pleasure being with you. It was a very great conversation. If anyone has any follow-up questions, I'm always a very easy sort of social media guy. So if anyone hits me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, in fact, actually, right about now, hopefully the socials are going to make its way across the screen and what have you. But for those that are just listening and not watching the video, so they can find you on LinkedIn. Are you on Twitter as well?
No, not on Twitter. I live on LinkedIn, so that's the best place to hit me up.
All right, no problem. All right, well, we'll make sure that's there. Bastiaan, thank you so much, and appreciate you coming on the show once more.
Thank you, Tom. It was a pleasure.